Okay, so welcome to this week's Circ HQ. I'm Robert, the game director, and we're going to basically be going through the progress that we've had on getting the pandemics back into the rebuild, getting it so it supports co-op, and just kind of going over the major roadmaps or major line items to get it to the point where we can get it in y'all's hands by the end of next week. If we can get it sooner, we will get it sooner. It just purely comes down to the what we're going to talk about and show tonight or this evening. And what because after this podcast, I'll probably be working on it, and I'll probably try and do some more private testing on public Discord. So I'll probably be sitting in a room for the rest of the day, on and off, doing builds with people that want to play. So after the podcast, you're welcome to join the Discord, chat with me, talk about whatever while I'm working on builds. We'll crash it, we'll play it together, whatever. So if you guys want to partake, that'll be after this, and I'll mention it again after the Q&A. So I see a couple people from the audience, and I'm gonna. So the update for the people that are playing, to show it in a second. Go and update your Steam on the build. So you know what I'm talking about. The build just went out, and for Efren, why don't you talk about what you've been doing while we give them some time to update their games and open them.
Right on. Howdy, folks. Well, it's getting close to finally getting San Francisco north rolling again. This week, I spent time doing some optimization on the road networks for the legacy maps of Treasure Island and Angel Island, pretty much converting a lot of the landscape splines that we were using, which turned out to be pretty inefficient, turning those into static mesh splines so we can merge those down into static mesh segments and make them a little more performant for the game. So hopefully that'll also help some of the performance. On top of that, just finished out going through all the assets, which was like thousands of assets to go through to make sure everything's pretty much there that we had initially put when we first created the maps. And then also started the process of giving South Treasure Island its overhaul. Pretty much, we're changing around Chelsea's villa. We're going to reposition that and the police station and the upscale neighborhood in that area. We got rid of the beach area. We got rid of the two smaller islands and the bridge connecting North and South Treasure Island. And we're getting it to look closer to the real world counterpart. So I'm going to be building up the mountain that's on the southern part where the Oakland Bay Bridge runs through and has that. It will also build out that tunnel, and it merges into the double decker that then takes you into San Francisco proper. So you're going to see a lot of different things when you get back into the legacy pandemic map, and it's going to look closer to the real life counterpart of San Francisco. So once that southern part of the island is done, which hopefully should get done within the next week, I'm going to try to power through that as much as I can. So like the landscape shouldn't take more than 2 days for me to actually sculpt out and get it ready to just replace all the assets and set dressing in that area, and then get the bridge updated so that it merges into the double decker and goes into downtown San Francisco. So once that's done, I'm going to dedicate most of my time to begin the finalization process of San Francisco, which means a lot of 3D modeling, uh, getting the finalized versions of the buildings into town, and set dressing, which is it's going to be quite an undertaking because that's a big ass map you guys are going to be getting.
I'm bringing it up
So
right
a lot of
now.
a lot of work is going to
People on
go into that.
YouTube, let me know if my volume level is better, by the way, because I see people talking about that. So I'm bringing it up right now. Do you want me to show them what you have on that island right now, or wait till next week? Yes.
On Treasure Island, I don't think I've committed any of the work I've done so far. I think it's still kind of
Yes. So
empty
you
on
want me to
your end.
wait?
So, I mean, if you want to show them the changes so far, I'd say go ahead. But they're going to
I'll
see a
just give
whole
them the
lot
rough
different
outline. Okay, so
coming
basically
into
what
next
this
week.
is just a really quick, dirty sketch of what he's working on. Where basically he's setting up the framing of like this over here is effectively being moved. Well, if it was grouped correctly, it'd be moved. But this is what he's talking about, where he's going in and he's moving this over here. He's cleaning up these areas over here. He's adding in the mountain, and basically building around, and we're just basically setting up the map for the final play area because we never really intended to have it this way for long term. It was more so we were working around engine limitations. The larger your map got from zero, the more inaccurate it would get. And in Unreal Engine 5, they fixed that. And we're just going to rip off the band aid. So the map that we're going to be playing tonight is going to be Half Moon Bay and Pandemic. And then this is the main course that he's working on. But he's like going into this into Halloween and going into Christmas. Ideally, around Halloween, we'll get you guys some kind of incubator early version of the map you can play because as he mentioned, as he's doing what he's doing, he's going to be basically facilitating and fleshing out this area and bringing it in alignment with the real world version of Treasure Island. So he's going to be like putting in the mountain, putting in the bridges, making it so you can get on and off the bridges, your cars can get on there, and all the other stuff. Moving over Chelsea's Villa, because technically there's a mountain right here. That's what he's talking about. We'll have something to show for this next week. But the idea is that there's a mountain that basically like the bridge goes over. So somewhere around here, you'd have Chelsea's Villa overlooking the bridge when you go in. And then it'll just kind of go over it. Like you'll have to see it when he shows it because he doesn't actually have it. A lot of his time over the last week was hunting down bugs in Half Moon Bay and hunting down collision and navigation issues on this map because we've been kind of going through and just rigorously just kind of auditing every asset and just kind of getting it ready for bringing it more in alignment with the real world version of Treasure Island. Now that we can actually build it to the level that we can, it's actually technically supported now. So you figure like this is the whole play area in terms of like what we're envisioning. So like if I don't, it'll take too long for me to hit the play button because it's not age-lotted. But to give you an idea, like this is the play area that we're going for, where it's roughly around like this area. If I were to give you a rough idea, where the bottom of the map is that tip, and then a little bit around Treasure, a little bit around Angel, and then the final area that we'd ever design is a slight part of the forest, and then put the Golden Gate, and then you can see there's the Oakland Bay Bridge, and that's the final map for the game at that point. And we're not going to add anything else. And then basically we'd end up just polishing and hyper polishing the areas that we have already. So then that way you have a great area to work with, and that these islands are baby tutorial islands, and that this is the main course. So one of the biggest things for us is that we're two level designers, we're two modelers. So we figure everyone was pulled off of level design last year just so we could finish the vehicles. So that was an entire year, if not more, working on the Little Bird and the vehicles and the level design changes that were in the main maps of the old Treasure Island map. And then once all of that got situated, now we're moving back to going back to level design because now we have all those assets that are on the experimental that have been merged down. That's going to be the content that the programmers are processing through going into December and October while they're working on this. So in that way, both teams are separating. Where Efren and Dimitri's still working on the hub, and we'll talk about that briefly. And then Efren's over here, just taking it grid by grid. So going into the next 3 days or so, when we meet next Saturday, the idea will be is he'll have this area like pretty much damn near blocked out and close to being done. Might be done, just depends on what kind of feedback I give him. And then at that point, when this area is done from a design standpoint and we're happy and it fits the real world Treasure Island, then he'll move on to just finalizing the bridge, dropping these down. And then once he gets the bridge connected and all that's finalized, then he'll start taking this area and detailing them and modeling them grid by grid by grid and using the procedural building generator tools and other stuff to basically give more variations and whatnot. So it's going to be slow going, but he's going to chip away at it. And then what I will do is I'll show one more thing to give the people that are going to be playtesting a little bit more time. Is there anything else you want to cover here, Efren, before I move over to Dimitri's work?
Yeah, I'm going to do my best to actually preserve that airfield too. So, I mean, hopefully it doesn't spill over too much, but if I need to cut away on that.
So me and Dimitri actually had a conversation about that earlier in the week. And one of the things that we were hitting on is that worst case, that airfield can be, because in real life, the airfield ends right around here and it's pushed in to right around there. So we might end up reducing the size of that airfield and then moving it down to San Francisco North and putting it technically over here. Because there is an airport technically somewhere around this area, so we could play around with some of the more miscellaneous buildings we have here and bake it an airport next to the docks. So that's what something that me and Dimitri were talking about as a backup plan is moving it there. We'll have to just see how it goes, see how it feels, because you're going to have a C5 landing here and taxiing to drop off the more super units when we get to implementing the Abrams and all that. So we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, let me rapid fire. We're going to jump into Alcatraz real fast so you guys can see the progress. And then hopefully everyone that's going to be playing has downloaded their game by now because it's about a 700 megabyte update. And then we're going to jump in and show Pandemic. So give me a second. Main menu Alcatraz. I had a slow moment there. Okay, so we're gonna really briefly just show what. Oh, okay. Just gonna bypass those. I'm gonna go explore Alcatraz. So Dimitri is basically just the guy kind of going through and just doing the small details here and there, and detailing the cages, detailing the exterior, setting up the actual like side rooms here and there, like these little like prison booths here, the metal detector, side rooms here, the side rooms here, those there. He's still able to show you just kind of working and just doing chunk by chunk by chunk of doing like the detail assets and just getting everything situated. I had a meeting with him the other day and he's just kind of be putting in like there's a tunnel here that goes downstairs and like a staircase. So he's just kind of going in and putting together all those details and getting this area situated, getting these areas detailed. There's still some Z fighting here and there for the blockouts that he's kind of going through. But you can see slowly but surely he's just kind of baking in more and more details into the hub. This is basically going to be like your home when you're staging, fucking around with your friends, and just kind of figuring out what mission you want to play as the game expands and more content is pushed into it. So like we're about the Z fighting. You guys will get this in the next patch of just generally the more detail he's kind of been baking in there. You can see these areas aren't populated just yet. He's focusing on the main areas. Ideally, we'll get to a point around Halloween where it's all textured and the interior jailhouse is situated. So that way we can get to a point where we're happy with it and then basically get him off to help Efren. Because the goal is between Christmas and December, he should be done with the hub to the level that we're looking for. Because not only is this for like the main menu, but let me escape it. The outside area. So eventually, in one of these Cirque HQs, you're going to see a version of this hub that's been copied and pasted and put into Efren's map. And that's going to be a dumbed down, emptied version. That's going to be another place you can build on and hide on. Because Alcatraz exists basically off the bay, off the coast, basically between Treasure Island and San Francisco. It's like off to the left, nested between. It's like, yeah. So you can look that up on Google Maps. This thing about all of this is going to be cleared, and it's just going to be a small little area where you can build and hide, kind of deal. And it'll just be like in the center of the Bay Area. So it's something that we're kind of working on towards. Is that I would say probably in the next week or two, before he works on, well, but in between the bridges and before he works on San Francisco North, he'll take this and then bake it down into an RTS version. And then you'll see that in the foreground on that map as another area you can go to and build on. So what I want to do really quickly before we do Pandemic is I'm going to pull Michael up so he can talk about what he's working on. And that will give me some time to load up my game. So Michael, you have the floor. Let me go ahead and switch it back over to main room. And I'm going to load up my game and start a session. Go ahead, launch that. All right, Michael, all yours. Let me go ahead and start the hosting, multiplayer.
All right. So the main part right now is I'm working on the kind of the unique type. So it's kind of like the in between. It's more the mutated infected. So it's an in between the special. Well, I guess would you classify? Yeah, I would say we classify them as more special
Yes.
infected types. So I'm working on a variant now. I don't know if you have the ability, Robert, to just pull up the concept. Not the rough draft with the tiny hands.
Hold on. You talking about him?
Yes. So this is what I'm currently working on. Kind of ran into a hiccup where I need to model out the bones, but we had something come up that was more of a balance change. You guys that play tested yesterday probably got the first wave of everything that's kind of changed with the damage resistances. I kind of went through and reorganized all that, but this is what I'm going back to because it looks like everything's smooth over the last playtest in terms of the balancing. So I'm going back to this, and probably I should have something more to show. I'd like to say by Tuesday, so you guys might see like a little neat sneak peek of it in InGen on Tuesday. But that is what I'm working on
Coolio.
currently.
Oh yeah, I'm hosting. People start joining my game, please. That are in the room, that are watching on YouTube, that have the codes prerequisitely. One of the biggest things that we wanted to do was we wanted to not only, because slowly but surely we're going to start replacing the standard infected with more visually impressive models based off of utilizing the latest Unreal Engine 5 techniques of like, well, we can use nanite, we'll use it. We're not using it as a stopgap to be lazy, not optimize the game. We're not going to just throw in FSR or DLSS and just say we're done. Yeah. So the idea is that we want to make sure we're taking the time to optimize these characters and using the knowledge that we've gained over the last 5 years to figure out the most efficient ways of doing them in terms of how their LODs are set up and their optimization and X, Y, and Z. So just keep in mind that like the characters are going to have very, very well done like close LODs, and then further away they'll basically drop down to like 10k, 5k polys, like we'd see in like League of Legends. So that's one of the things that we're doing, using some newer technology to basically bake them down and optimize them. And that way you can get really nice, sexy screenshots up close. But then at a distance, it's effectively like cutting them down their detail. So then that way it doesn't put a strain on your video card or your CPU of rendering that many material IDs or that many vertexes and X, Y, and Z. So those are all things that we're looking at long term, of just going into this and just recycling and getting rid of those older assets. One sec, I just remembered that we've been. I didn't. I guess I didn't. I guess I didn't level up that much. Damn, I'm only level 3. I've been barely playing my operator. I was gonna check to see if I have to level up before we go into the mission. So I'm assuming everyone's in that's coming, because if you're not in the next 30 seconds, I'm starting. I'm gonna invite everyone that's like in the thing to speak if. So there you guys go. I invited you guys to speak if so they can hear you guys talk as we're playing, because we're going to just mock up a session. You guys are going to play. I'm just going to be the observer. So this is your guys' session, playing however you normally play. Obviously, don't do any crazy exploits that we talked about the other day that haven't been fixed yet. I'm going to go ahead and I invited Phoenix, Quively, and Silver to talk. And we're going to go ahead and just load right in. We can hear your car, Michael. Yeah, we can hear you clicking.
Really? I can't. Can you just mute me, please?
All right. So one of the things that we set out to do with the rebuild was essentially making it to where we had a lot more redundancies in terms of like basically Chelsea, the infection, and just generally how she spreads. They're more like isolated systems, so it's easier to communicate and like expand those systems, I guess you can say. And they're not as like deeply nested together. So what you're gonna notice right off the bat, and they're gonna be playing, I'm just gonna be talking, is essentially when I zoom out, you're gonna have your zones. She's gonna pick a zone of whatever zone she decides to basically spread to, and then from there she's going to start infecting that population. Now, one of the changes that we did do is we got rid of the low, medium, high, and we just gave you a damn number. There's a lot of people that I talked to, it was like kind of confusing, and they couldn't really tell like what is it actually at, like what is the contagion level. Should I be concerned? What does high mean? What does low mean? What does X, Y, and Z mean? So that was one of the things that I made a change related to that. You'll also notice that in the next build, you'll be able to click on structures. If we can get it in time, we'll get it in there. But it doesn't actually show the population in the name. This is still a very early build in terms of basically just kind of conveying the gameplay and everything else. So you can see right now, I guess they're just organizing and sending off their people. Oh, I guess Chelsea decided to bum rush us right off the rip. So hold on, we're gonna go ahead. Let me just go back to team because that one actually, that's a fake. That's a really bad start. So we're gonna do that one again. I have to remove that start location, so bear with me.
Did we want to do the
Yeah, we'll
split
turn that
economy setting?
on. And then just give me 1
Okay.
second because that was a really bad start. I'm gonna have to move her starting location so it's further away. Because like you figure there's a chance that she can start down here. Either I have to move the LCAC or I'm gonna have to do something else. Let me go ahead and change the money to split. And then I'm going to divvy the money up evenly.
Could maybe people that gonna build the sock get extra like amount?
Who's building
Slide?
the sock?
I'm gonna get the first one at Ironworks. And
I'll
I
give
know
you.
about
I'll
the
just give you
rest.
6K. Did you get it? Oh,
I got
my bad. I typed it
$6.
wrong.
Oh yeah.
There you go. I like butterfingered it. All right, so there's your money there. You can see now they're building. They're doing all their stuff. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. So the idea is that there are, I will just talk about the technical aspect while they play and build, is that right now she's in the map somewhere, choosing her location, figuring out where she's going to go. Now, there are no shutter rounds in this early build, so you can just kill her just outright as it stands. That's something I have to fix going into releasing it to you guys. There's still aspects that aren't complete yet. And this is just more so an early build just to get across, like, how is it playing? What kind of things do we need to change in X, Y, and Z? Now, one of the other things that you'll notice is that they're building the helipad because the helicopters are in. Derek's been working pretty aggressively to get their AI working, fixing some garrison issues, and just essentially just kind of bug fixing them to the level where they're fully useful. We've been kind of like, I guess you could say, stress testing them over the last couple of days. I'm sure Ford's been finding a lot of issues here and there related to their execution, their garrisoning, and everything else. So we've been kind of working with them and working with the playtesters on the public Discord to effectively fix them as they present themselves. We'll actually be testing a couple of the bugs that we ran into last night to see if there's still an issue today, ironically, in this playtest, and then probably later tonight. We left the LCAC in just for the time being, because technically it's just a static barracks that you just get for free, just to allow you to build another engineer. Somehow you get them killed in the beginning of the game. Michael has been going through and rebalancing the game based off of watching them play it live and also just listening to what people have to say in the channels. So if there's something off or weird about the game's balance, you should consider making a thread and tagging him. So you can see right now, each player is kind of broken off into their own little subset of the map to basically build their own little fob and just kind of set up a base of operations. So you have Dark Silver over here, building in the Civic Center, building his SOC, building his base. You have Ford doing his base over here in this little parking lot area. That's like his favorite spot, I swear to God. And then you have Quigley in his favorite home, which is the warehouse area. And each person's kind of taking up an area of responsibility. And we're just kind of waiting to see where the infection starts. And then based off of that, it'll let us know how to prioritize resources. Now, the pacing, the attacking, the defending, we're all still kind of experimental. So we're still kind of testing it as we go and just kind of using them, I guess you could say, as guinea pigs to figure out, is it too fast or is it too slow at times? Now, I feel like in the beginning of the game, it can't take too long for her to get the 1% for one of these zones. So for quite a bit of time, you're kind of guessing. Now, you'll also notice that the bird ticker is not in yet. And that's going to come in the next week or two in terms of basically some kind of notification or news system that relays to you where she could potentially be. Because in the legacy versions, it effectively would tell you some fake information and some right information. And you had to piece it together based off of just generally how much information was coming from the same zone that you could collaborate in terms of like, okay, like we keep getting reports of this kind of grisly stuff in like Zone X So then we would know at that point we need to consider investigating zone X. Oh, she's there. Oh, the infection level is going up. Okay, that's a problem. Great. So it was one of those things where effectively, yeah, this is something that we are, looking into in terms of basically just kind of fleshing that out. So now you can see infected population is 1% here. Let's see if I can find her pod. Let's see. It's probably, yeah, it's right here. So you can see she placed down her pod, the hive pod with the corals, which lets you know that's her primary location. And then she placed down a couple of the newer defense pods, and she just built the third one. Now, this is another reason why it's not released publicly, is because you figure we're still working through bugs of this is the first time ever that we've added opposing faction structures under the scope of the replication. So there are bugs where sometimes you can see her structures before they even appear. Before you have to physically go there to see them, but we can see them right now. So I'm going to show you something I shouldn't show you. I'm going to show you behind the curtain. Basically, if I bring up the debugging tools, you can see that she's sending out emissaries to spread the infection in every direction she can. So these are basically, that's an attack party going to go kill someone, some unfortunate bastard. And then some of these are emissaries where they're going out to basically build other pods in other locations and spread the infection, and then passively affect the population, which then turns into, infection that she can use to do her jobs. So when this arrives, and whoever she's deemed is going to be killed, most likely it's going to be Silver or Ford that she's sending that huge attack party to. They'll attack. They'll do an inventory of what worked and what didn't, and then that will help them determine what they need to do next. In terms of okay, we need to consider a larger attack party next time. We need to consider using more brutes. We need to consider using more blow-up guys, more spitters. Now, one of the interesting things, let me just turn this off for this visual clutter. One of the interesting things that we did this time around was making it to where they more actively understand what you're doing and in terms of when you attack them, they profile the units that you're using, and then they counter it with the build order. The legacy systems were just random. If you spammed the Apaches, they would sometimes only spam ground units like stand-in infected. If they did a juggernaut or a spitter, it was pure happenstance. So one of the systems that I set out to basically take that and build upon it and improve it vastly was giving it the level of sophistication so they would understand. I probably shouldn't have told Dark Silver they were coming. Now he's panicking. Is they would understand if you're using snipers, build spitters. If you're using little birds, spitters. If you're building, you're amassing stand-in infected, build some stand-in infected, and then basically fill in some, I guess you can say, brutes. Units that can basically soak up the damage that would allow them to basically get closer. Because the stand-in infected are there to soak up and basically eat up the bullets, and the brutes and everyone else are there to effectively do the actual damage, and then they'll trickle in some special infected here and there. So that's the idea that we're going for, to basically add it to where defense waves, when you attack them, they'll look at what you're attacking with and then figure out what they need to do, not only from a moving and an attacking standpoint, but also figure out from a standpoint of okay, what do I need to attack with based off of what we're doing? So you can see right here, here's the actual infected here, and they're just kind of chilling in this neighborhood. And then you can see, I don't know who's controlling. That's probably Ford, because he likes to name his helicopters after Shisha for some reason. And you figure, yeah. So basically, he's just kind of scouting with the little bird, just seeing what's going on here. It looks like they are having a bug. So this is one of the bugs that we were looking into previously. Is that, let me move that little bird away and see if they magically fix. I'm just curious. And this is another reason why it's not released publicly, is that we're working through bugs with their targeting and issues with their AI when it comes to the helicopters and some of the other aspects. So it's still a very early build. We're still just kind of working through all the kinks and all the bugs here and there. Because sometimes we noticed that when we were playing last night, they would attack you very hardly, and then they would go dormant for a long period of time, and then out of nowhere, they would just strike you. Like you can see over here, they have an infection population of 3, so they've set up some pods here. They have some infected just kind of chilling around here. And basically, they're slowly but surely just kind of spreading different zones. Let's see, did they get to here? Let me check. Doesn't look like they've gotten as deep as there. They have an infected moving here, probably spreading. And then it looks like these AI, for some reason, are trying to defend this location, but they're not moving out. This is one of the things that I'm looking into resolving going into tonight, going into Monday, is improving their attacking and defense logic, because something is going on sometimes where they don't actively attack you as nearly as much as they should. Who's sniping? Oh, that's Quibbly picking at them again. Oh, it's Phoenix.
Phoenix.
So you can see Phoenix is sitting here trying to basically snipe at one of the defense towers, and I guess he's getting sniped at by a defense pod. And then you can see that the defense system is sending out some, and this is one of the issues that I was talking about that I'm working on, and this is again why it's not released publicly. I'm going to need at least a day or 2, maybe 3, to work through these bugs and figure out why sometimes they're not actively tasking infected. So you can see right now he's like he's sniping at these pods, but they're not actively respawning. But they did spawn the infected. There's an issue when it comes to their attacking and defense, where sometimes they're not properly, like the attacking and the defending is actively counteracting each other in terms of their task management system. So this is something that I'm looking into revamping. Oh, he's getting lit. Going into tonight, going into Monday after this Cirque HQ. And I'm going to be seeing if I can resolve these. Because this is ultimately one of the major reasons why it's not released publicly, is that I need to iron out these kinks. Because now when it gets closer, sure, they're going to charge, but that's not good enough. What should have happened in the confines of how this game is programmed is that once you attack a unit, it puts out an investigation task. That investigation task then assigns a team to go out and search the area and figure out what's going on. So by him hitting this pod, it stirs up the hive, and essentially the people that are in this zone would get built, and then they would charge over here, and they'd investigate where they're getting damage from, like Winter's over here. But in this case, something's failing in their actual like assignment system, where like only some of them are working, and I think it's mostly based off of sight. At least you guys get to see the new defense pod system in terms of them working. There are some bugs that we're investigating in terms of their target acquisition here and there. So they're all things that we're actively just kind of investigating and hunting down, going into... Oh, okay. I guess he just put her on the little bird and ran away. So there's the little bird in terms of basically like showing off that at least. Ford, are you getting the... I don't know if you're still getting it, where sometimes they don't shoot on the little bird. That's something else that's an active bug. Oh, wait, no, they're shooting now.
Winter's is really good shooting. That's why I put her specifically. That's why she's the only one on that.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where we're still working on the garrison system and the little bird system. There were quite a few of replication or multiplayer bugs that we ran into in terms of desync. And you can see there's one going on right now. Let me turn off the debugging so I can actually tab follow her. So if I click on her, you can see like you figure like she's on it and she's repelling. But there's definitely some issues that we're ironing out in terms of like the helicopters when it comes to the multiplayer coding. So that's gonna like right now, like that's weird. So those are issues that we're hunting down and we're trying to eliminate before we get it in y'all's hands. And we're just kind of playtesting it right now with the boys. Let's see if I can find... Does anyone have an attack party so we can show some of the... I'm just gonna steal someone's barracks. And then I will demonstrate that, and then we can move into the Q&A part, because after this broadcast, I'm going to be working on hunting down the bugs and seeing if I can refactor or change some of the task management system, because I've already, last night when everyone got off and we finished our playtesting, I hunted down some of the cases where basically like, let's see if they're still there. Yeah, they're setting up their little protective nets, but they're not being nearly as aggressive. They're making you have to come to them is the problem. So those are one of the issues that I'm gonna be hunting down. So like when I spawn in these infected, you'll see what I mean. Sorry, infected. When I spawn in these circ,
I've got your 6. Moving there.
I'm gonna hotkey them to 1.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Oh, can I use one of your little birds?
On station.
I got 2 of them. I got one. The one that's
And
closest
then you
to
can
them
also
just
see
went
the
up.
unit garrison icons aren't working. So that's something else that's not in yet. I'm gonna use this little bird to just get in closer. See, some of them are coming over here, ironically.
Oh my gosh.
Repel there. You can see that there were some mass improvements made to basically their deceleration. This is another bug that we're aware of, where sometimes when they go down, they kind of like the physics state is not properly being synchronized. So that's something else that we're investigating as it stands right now. But let me just get the little bird out of here so it doesn't get shot down by spitters.
In command.
And I'm just going to move in my team.
I have a bad feeling.
And then that way you can kind of see how their defense response at least works.
Moving out.
Let's just run them up.
Moving there.
One thing that we have noticed is that we've been kind of playing with the defense pods because they tend to be kind of aggressive, like super fucking OP in some cases. So we're still kind of playing with the balance of those boys. It just accounts for just basically how much damage they can do and their fire rate. You'll see in early GIFs that I posted on Discord, some of the issues that we ran into was just like, basically these are just the turrets that the Cirque have, but reskin different fire rates, the same core underlying code. So you can see here's our defense response, where they're attacking and they're pushing in. And realistically, I should pause the game, deploy you, fire rate, move these over here on the 3, and use them for scouting. And they're gonna have to just eat the bullets. Move them up and pause. Is that far enough? I'm not gonna make that grenade. They're gonna have to run up. Holy shit! They're
Oh,
dead.
God.
That's a wrap, folks. I'm trying to just at least destroy the pod. Uh-oh. Retreat.
Get those heavies
Where's the
running.
little bird?
Choppers inbound.
Can you get the little bird over here to pick
Inbound.
me up, and I'll love you long time?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're gonna just retreat into that courtyard.
Little bird's on scene, landing now. In the back of the courtyard.
Someone just fire a flare for my assault. I'm gonna have to get them back anyway. I gotta heal them. How long? Oh, I didn't even
it's already
see
there.
it.
It's in that back courtyard. It's on your screen right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
get the hell out. Can you drive them back to base? That way we can at least
Yeah.
show how the co-op operates at height. Well, that's kawaii. Yeah, we're definitely gonna
There you
have to
go.
make it to where the little bird is not allowed to have any forward velocity until it actually gets up. Because the problem is that it's trying to move immediately upon actually going up and ascending. It needs to ascend and then move. It's trying to do too much in one go, and that's when you get those instances where it
Moving out.
just almost gets itself killed basically. Because that would have been fatal had something been shooting at it.
Give me orders.
So there's a basic breakdown of basically what we've been
Paper.
working on for the pandemic. Let me see if I can't heal these guys. Do you have anything else you guys want to show that you think are notable before we end the session? No one's attacking. Everyone's just turtling.
I think I had a bunch of individuals, but I just shot them with the one Gatling or Vulcan. But yeah, I showed all the main little bird stuff, the features there.
Okay.
So that's good.
Well, you guys will at least get to see the proof of concept of basically these guys are building over here, these guys are building over there, and then you figure forward help me out with the extract and everything else. So one of the biggest things again going into early next week is, well, you kind of seen a part of it, is defending and the attacking logic, and then just kind of ironing out these kinks, working on the pod placement itself, and just continuing to hunt down and just eradicate any bugs that run into it. You can see at this point they pretty much have taken and killed everyone in Falcon Field. Union Row is at 71%. Civic Center is at 37, and it's still ticking. And then they've also spread around the Brave Front. Now, the interesting part of how this is set up, is that they spread wherever they can get units. So a lot of systems were changed to make sure they don't do the weird thing they would do in Legacy, where they would backdoor you, per se, where you'd have like a barricade or some other system, and then for some reason the game would sometimes allow them to have an infection pop up behind you, per se. So you can see in this instance, they spread along the area where the Cirque weren't. So because Dark Silver did not build all the way up to here and close off these major entry points, these streets, let me just kind of go back. Here, and these neighborhood boroughs, then they would basically sneak past him and effectively be able to build in Civic Center, which then in turn would cause a ripple effect for them to go on the Bayfront, which then in turn they'll eventually go to Ironworks or Breaker's Point. So it really comes down to their AI and how they deem they need to prioritize, and just kind of, they're going to just spread wherever they can, whenever they can. So let's see. At that point, I think that's pretty much everything there is to show for progress. I'm going to pretty much end the playtest at that point, and then we're going to move on to the Q&A. So I already see, let me see. I don't know, was there anything you guys want to mention from the playtest you guys have ran into for Silver, Quively, Ford, Phoenix?
It's very fun. That's all.
Well, when it's not bugging out like you did that session.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm really enjoying the addition of the helicopters and like being able to actually do two things: either transport people with helicopters, either picking them up or getting them out, or the other thing, which is provide support, which is just the gunners on the side of the helicopters.
So I guess
It both adds
so
that
for
to a
what you
very good
guys have
aspect
been
of the game.
playing, what do you guys feel like are the biggest pros and cons going? I know that we talked about it briefly, but what are some of the things you guys would want to mention for people that are looking into playing it next week?
The range of both the infected turrets and the ability for the units to see them. So they can see them sometimes, but they have to get close.
Okay.
From what I've
So the
seen.
range of the turrets towards the range towards the defense turrets is what you're saying. Okay.
Yes. It's like literally just down the street. Snipers
Okay,
can't
so that's
shoot them.
something we'll look into. And then I don't know, were there any other takeaways of pros and cons versus what you guys have played?
Pros is the
Oh,
pandemic
God.
stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is like, I mean,
That's the
I guess
majority of
what
the
I'm saying
plot,
is, did you guys have fun? What kind of experiences did you have? Like, add some range in terms of what you guys ran into the last couple of days playing it, because you guys have ultimately been playing it almost every day for the last 3 days.
Yeah.
Don't all talk at once.
Okay. Well,
I mean, it's really
I'll
fun.
mention something. I really do enjoy, like, at first you want to build like a base, like the pros, like there's like a little bit of progression. Like at first you want to like do defenses, and then secondary, after you build the defenses, that's when at the same time the enemy has built their bases or whatever, then you want to send
Sure.
out attack parties. So then you want to start like actually destroying their pods and stuff. So I like how you kind of like shift how you play or what you do. Like at the very beginning, you're kind of like really heavy on like walls and things and buildings, but then later on, you're really heavy on like units. Actually spend your time on different things throughout the game, which is
So in the
really
sessions that you
interesting.
guys played, I guess the question would be, is like, what was the dynamic? I mean, did you guys get hit pretty hard? Because when you guys were share screening the other day, I saw several situations in the other channel where like you guys were building and then they just run in there and kill an entire base. Like, do you feel like those situations were like fun? Like, what was your takeaways in terms of like how it was playing when the attack waves are working?
They were very effective, and
What does that mean?
Yeah. They're very
Yeah, like, they
effective.
targeted
And
the stock
yeah,
way too
very
much over
effective,
the
and they basically just stomped the base every time I
Oh.
saw it.
Yeah,
like
and
they
if you
target
had
the
a
base only,
unit
though.
and the horde came, and that unit, if some survive, that's a good outcome.
Yeah, it was just pretty harsh. Like those hordes are pretty harsh. Like you would have to like really prepare. Like you'd have to like we're really just missing like a more recon. That's mainly it. It's like how I was using the Sparrow this game on the airfield. How I sent the Sparrow like into the airfield to like scout ahead to see where the enemy were. They're like crowding, swarming up on a base, or just building as we
Yeah.
saw building that base. Things like that. It's like we just need more recon. So that'll help us better decide because like most of it is like we don't know they're coming until there's just a horde outside our base. But then when we have like 2 turrets and level 1 walls, so like, it's
Yeah.
more of like on our fault that we didn't build, but then on our fault that we also didn't recon and watch the enemy slowly advance on us. Things like that.
There also comes fact, although it might be more of experience of learning how to get more control of the areas, because you generally don't see where they are moving, and you would probably need to have some guys in like a mobile manner just patrolling around, and if they see lone infected going
So
around,
one of the
then they
biggest
just
things that
shoot
you
them.
guys noticed is that when you were playing, if you didn't actually actively have like people patrolling or some kind of buffer, you get a wave come in and then they just wipe the floor.
Or at least reconnaissance,
Okay.
but yes.
So,
Yep.
so
There's also one that moment we have pretty much the global limit on the turrets and watchtowers. So we pretty much, at least with only those, we can really reinforce 1 to 2 places really well that can survive a horde plus extra units.
Okay. Well,
Something
Yeah.
digital brought up yesterday is the infected seem to have set places to build, and they will take over shortly after you clear them out.
yeah.
Oh yeah, they're very set locations, so you could just build fobs at those.
Yeah, that's gonna be one of those things that where
Yeah.
we're gonna have to
Like
basically
checkpoints.
just kind of bounce around and adjust as we go into it. Because one of the biggest things is that we had a lot of issues with the dynamic system of them being placed in locations that would block bridges, they would break navigation. So this time around, we're making it to where the locations are preset to a certain degree, and there's some range of randomness, but that's the general vector we're going in. Then we're gonna experiment with that and see how it feels this time around. What I'm gonna say is, let us see if there's any other questions. Is there anything else you guys want to add from the experiences that you guys played that was fun? Any notable takeaways or?
No, I think I mentioned like the helicopter and then like the progression and like that kind of stuff. I can't really
Okay,
think of anything
perfect.
else personally.
All right.
I feel like operator progression is a little bit better
Wait,
in
what
Pandemic
is?
than opposed to Horde. I feel like operator progression, like leveling up, it's a little bit better.
Oh, better how?
I don't know. To me, it just feels faster. I don't
Probably
know
because
why.
they're just throwing endless hordes at you. Like there's no like delay. You could sit there and camp a pod, and you could literally probably just level up all
Yeah.
game just by sitting out there. But if you think about it, you could put one of your sniper or one of your M4 guys on a hill, or like on one of the buildings outside a pod, and then those infinitely keep spawning until one of you die. But technically, you could exploit that. Yeah.
Uh-huh. I will ask though before real quick, how does the gun balance feel to you guys? I'm still low level in my M4, so it still goes to Narnia. It still goes to Narnia. Okay. But that's probably just because I'm low level, like low 4 or 5. My
Okay.
M4. I only have like one attachment. You only have one? I have. Where is it? I have like the recon scope and one. What the hell? Okay, I don't know how that happened. Recon scope, compensator, and I don't even have the extended mag yet. So. Okay, so even with the compensator, you're still having issues with the recoil. Yeah, I mean, close up, it's manageable. But at a distance, yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
something we'll look into in terms of
Okay.
weapon balance because we're always tweaking that based off of feedback and that's very fluid in terms of like how things are working. So we're gonna open it up into QA just across the board on YouTube, on Steam, and on Discord. So if you guys have any questions about Pandemic, how things are going, any concerns you want to voice, this would be the time to do so. I already see some questions that are backlogged on YouTube, so I'm gonna grab those while I wait. So Bro Even asks, when will Pandemic be available on the Legacy game? So if we're talking about Legacy, I think you're talking about like the older version. We're roughly aiming to get everything done for phase 2 and phase 3 by December. Because we feel that because most of the time that was accrued in phase 1 was building up the foundation. And now that we're in phase 2, we're just building on that foundation. Like the garrison system for the guard towers being the basis of the Little Bird garrison. There are going to be some growing pains here and there as we adapt and improve the system. But give you an example, now that we've done the Little Bird, we've done the basis of a lot of systems for the vehicles, of like the garrisoning, getting in and out of the vehicle. You know, how do you repair a vehicle? How does gas work? So as we go along, we're chipping things off that indirectly affect every other aspect of development, which is another reason why I was able to write pretty much that entire pandemic mode in about a week, about 3 or 4 days. So by next week, by testing with people on Discord, and by basically just ironing out, I mean, we'll probably be doing builds almost every 2 or 3 hours on the public Discord, is basically trying to eliminate and eradicate the remaining bugs, and then get it to the point where you guys can play it on the co-op branch. So I'm gonna say from like a standpoint of like you guys being able to play this, where I'm aiming for as early as Wednesday, but we'll have to just wait and see in terms of whatever issues people run into on Discord, and then that will allow me to pace myself in terms of where I need to prioritize efforts here and there. Because one of the things I do want to do is I want to at least get in the gas towers before Friday. I want to get in the gas towers. I want to get some more changes to AI, Chelsea's AI. Obviously, I want to fix the attacking and defense logic. The pod logic is perfect. Them expanding, them building, them placing defense pods is pretty goddamn perfect. There's some minor things I need to look into that are edge cases, but pretty much a majority of what is stopping me from just pushing this out, as you guys saw earlier, is just the attacking and defending logic. And I'm gonna go crash a fucking energy drink off of this and go work on that. I'll be on the public Discord probably for the rest of the day working on it. So anyone that does want to help playtest, that wants to give feedback, you're welcome to join and talk about the game and talk about your concerns or any X, Y, and Z. So anyway, what else do we have for questions here? Hopefully I answered your question, bro. Even I assume that Legacy meant that version of it, but if you need me to clarify, let me know if you're still watching on YouTube. Now, when it comes to Discord, what do we have for questions? So Quively said, he's just basically more of a statement, is that he says the operator level 19 with an M14 heavily leveled has significant power. Though I do them on struggle, if I do struggle heavily with ammo, it burns fast. But it has amazing burst damage and precision, really good to pop in, destroy high value targets, and then dip. And that's something I can attest to. Was when I was watching these guys the other day, and since Thursday when we started playtesting, I would watch operators just do hit and runs, where they'd run in with like 1 or 2, or just a team of RTS units paired to them. They'd hit like 2 or 3 pods, and then get pulled out by a Little Bird, or they'd run back to the base the moment the horde came to basically respawn. So it was a very interesting, balance there in terms of the RTS to the operator aspect. Because personally, when I play Pandemic, I don't play as operator. I only play as like the actual like RTS, because you have to have like, I let other people deal with the operator. I play as the operator as an RTS hero. It's only horde modes when I really play as the operator, ironically. So it's one of those things where it's just interesting how that's kind of like coming to fruition there in terms of like those gameplay loops. Let's see if there's any other questions before we wrap this up. Any other questions for YouTube? Let's see. I mean, let me check Steam too. Okay, so Caleb Worthington asked the question, are there going to be any more Ajax variations besides the current ones in Legacy, like medical, ML, mobile power, etc.? That is an interesting idea. Honestly, the new system that we wrote when it comes to deploying power allows us to basically make anything supply or take away power via its actor component now. I I'm gonna write that down as like I'm gonna put a pin in that for right now because you figure some of that was being saved for Pierce long term for 1.4. Some of it is in the doctrines for being able to add other variations of like the DNA farming atlas, where we wanted to have a structure that you could set up and that would allow you to farm DNA as another way. So if you don't want to engage with the civilian evacuation, or if you don't want to just go out and play like Find Waldo, you can set up a tent with the Atlas variation. And that would allow you to just passively farm it. And then you have to just defend it and then bring it back to a research structure in your zone. And then you'd be able to deposit the resources. That's it to the most that we're thinking about there. Let me see if everything else. Any other questions anyone has before we wrap this up? We'll give it another 2 minutes or so, 2 or 3 minutes. And if there's no other questions that trickle in, I'm going to move on to the next section. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for this week's Cirque HQ. Thank you guys so much for dropping in and seeing the progress that comes to the pandemic mode. We'll obviously have a lot more to show for the pandemic and the helicopters. Going into next week, we're definitely going to be aiming to try and wrap up the helicopters in terms of being able to show the weapons on the helicopters, the little bird, the black. The goal is going to be is that we got a lot of bugs, a fuck ton of bugs on the first 2 or 3 days of getting the helicopter in. So we spent the last 2 or 3 days hunting down bugs that Ford and everyone else had reported. There's still about probably 2 or 3 bugs that are still present in the helicopters. We'll have to see if they can recreate it tonight. And if they're not, then they're dead, they're done, then we'll move on. But one of the biggest things is that we need to get the helicopters to a point where the garrison system and the movement is happy and we're good with it. And then at that point, we're going to segue into the weapons. We'll get the miniguns, the rocket launchers set up for the little bird. Now, once that's set up for the little bird, then it will become a copy and paste or using it essentially as the base to set up the Black Hawk, the Chinook, the Scout drone, and then finally the VTOL. So that's going to round out next week. Ideally around Wednesday, Thursday, because I was talking to Derek earlier in the week and he said probably the weapons will take him about maybe 1 to 2 days, maybe 3 if somehow we run into some catastrophic bug. And the one thing I want to emphasize there is that when we do the weapons for the helicopters, that's the weapons for the vehicles. So it's kind of like, again, we're biting off small little elements that can be readapted and realigned with those aspects of development. So we're kind of like doing more than what we're actually saying when it comes to the grand scheme of things in terms of tasks, whatever. Let's see, what else is it for that? And then just to make sure for a recap, around Wednesday to Friday is when I'm roughly aiming to try and get something out. If I can get something out sooner, if I make a breakthrough tonight, then it could be sooner. It just kind of depends on just how things go over the course of the weekend. For me, just ironing out the bugs and testing it with these guys and whoever else wants to help us on the public Discord. I'll put out a ping in a couple hours for anyone that wants to help test. Let's see, is there anything else? And then I think that pretty much sums it up. Is we're just basically just kind of going through the paces to get pandemic to you guys as soon as possible in the co-op form. And thank you guys for coming. We appreciate you guys. If you want to consider supporting the team, consider checking out one of the support packs on Steam. Consider checking out our Patreon, checking out the merch. And you guys have a great evening, and I will catch you all later.